So we have some huge news regarding Throne of Liberty. Yesterday, I made a video on it. A massive update coming with a lot of new changes, housing systems, battlegrounds, much more. This is a video we wanted to check out from Invulnerable. He streams and does a lot of YouTube content, and he made a video on the death of Throne of Liberty a few weeks back, and I was meaning to check it out, but I was like, why not check it out right now with all the new changes to see if some of the changes might change the opinion of the video, or if Throne of Liberty can survive the upcoming months, because we have seen that the numbers have been dropping when it comes to Throne of Liberty, but it kind of stabilized, and it's summer, so maybe with a new update we can see some good changes. So let's just check out his video. Make sure you check out his channel. I'm going to link it in the description below.
Liberty, and
All right, let's see.
IP in the MMORPG space, this game has gone through so many iterations that most of you may not know about.
Lineage, I guess.
Sequel to the famous Lineage franchise known as Lineage Eternal in 2011, and then in 2017 it later renamed to Project TL, and then finally in 2022 the final version that you know today as Throne and Liberty. Each iteration was
Yes, I mean, it was this Lineage developers that were going with that same direction, and then they made a bunch of changes to the game. And we know when it first launched or had its beta, it was horrible. It was static combat, very mobile type of game, and because of all the uproar that it got and all the drama, they decided to overhaul the whole combat and completely change it. But they were going for more of a mobile type of game.
Was actually vastly different to each other. Interestingly enough, originally Lineage Eternal was actually a top-down MMO ARPG styled game with a squad-based system, where you would switch between 4 different non-customizable heroes throughout your
this
encounters. After delays,
wait, is this V Rising? It looks horrible.
Change the direction for the game and
or an MMO.
on a new path, though.
Looks like a dungeon crawler.
Reworking all the systems and swapping from the previous game engine to the Unreal Engine 4. This was the second iteration of the game named Project TL.
Complete revamp.
Would be a top-down MMO ARPG styled game, but would do away with the squad-based hero system that Lineage Eternal previously had. They would then introduce the more traditional class system where you could choose from 5 different customizable characters like the Ranger, the Warrior, and the Mage. There would also be the introduction of a new physics-based destruction and manipulation system important to the gameplay loop of Project TL, and of course an overall higher visual fidelity. But once again, from what we understand,
Throne Liberty is nothing like this. So I guess they tried many things, and they were like, "Yo, this is ass. Let's try implement it to a proper open world MMO with some kind of action combat."
Happy with the direction of the game, and perhaps they didn't want to compete with Lost Ark at the time. They decided for the third time to completely rework the scope of the game. This in 2022 was revealed as Throne and Liberty. Stepping away from the ARPG style of the previous version,
and Throne and Liberty at first release, the first beta game that you could test, was horrible.
Throne moved towards your traditional third-person styled MMORPG, with brand new systems including a new weapon-based class system, a comprehensive weather system that would fundamentally change the game's mechanics, and many more massive changes. Again, there would also be a massive upgrade in the visual department to make sure the game was in line with modern-day graphical standards. Throne and Liberty was also marketed mainly towards the large-scale PvP audience, with guilds and alliances fighting over nodes in the world to massively
True, but now it's turning into more of a PvE MMO, in my opinion.
Hyped up siege battles that could host up to thousands of players.
Siege battles were pretty cool. I'm gonna be honest. When I first did my siege battles in this game, it was so fun. So the sieges and everything that they first promised, when it worked, was actually really nice.
And would take a change in direction for the worse, and I will explain more on this later. Throne and Liberty definitely had by far one of the wildest development processes I've ever seen in the MMO space. Even the game developers quoted that they even lost sight of their initial vision of the game. Previous iterations that included Lineage in the game's title, like Lineage Eternal and Project the Lineage.
I mean, they're not wrong. I mean, you guys saw the games that they were making? They could have just launched them as a separate game and then lost Throne of Liberty. I mean, I feel like Throne of Liberty had nothing similar to those games that they were first working on, like Project TL and stuff.
Felt like they had changed the game's story and systems far away from the original, but it warranted its own standalone IP. With the amount of changes throughout the development process, it really did show that the development team was flexible to fundamentally changing their game for the better or worse. This was definitely...
Also, I gotta give credit, because when we complained about the combat, they actually fixed the combat in 6 months or less, which was really impressive. So again, I feel like the developers were really good at what they were doing, and they just needed a proper plan to actually execute.
present with a timeline between the disastrous open beta on May 2023 to the Korean launch later that year. Now, why was the open beta in Korea for Throne of Liberty such a disaster? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, look how bad it was. 6 months is all they needed to fix this. That's crazy. Oh my god, the UI was horrible too.
What?
The combat TNL has always been regarded as a pretty weak aspect of the game, but once we all saw the combat that was showcased by streamers and players participating
It's
in
much
the Korean
better.
open beta, the feedback they also gave being very harsh, the game was basically an instant write-off and a huge disappointment to the MMO player base as a whole. The clunky, unresponsive, and unfun combat had completely ruined the game. Also to add, there was a big emphasis on the autoplay function in combat, which is prevalent in a lot of mobile games, and it is very shunned upon.
It
by
was very
PC and
mobile-y.
console gamers. Combat is an extremely important part of any game, and so with a negative press and feedback, NCSoft decided to delay their game to later that year. They would then completely rework the combat system and remove the auto combat feature. Now, this was great and all, and honestly pretty much saved the game from failure on release. We would start seeing some issues later down the line stemming from the original design that I will talk about later. Alright, it's the 7th of December, 2023.
Korean launch. I mean, it didn't do too well in Korea compared to other games or mobile
There was
games.
a lot of skepticism because of, well, NCSoft's previous track record, but there was also a lot of intrigue and hype because people in general are just looking for that next MMO. My friends and I bought Korean accounts from an account seller as
Same.
you needed a Korean phone number to be able to create an account.
In case you guys didn't know, I bought an account in Korea. I played it, and the guy that sold me the account was bought selling Lucent from my account when I was sleeping, and my account got banned in Korea. Just a short lore, but at least I got to test it out.
And honestly, the launch experience was extremely solid. No emergency maintenances, no queues, and stability in general was quite solid. The game felt pretty polished besides the big topic I will talk about, which is Desync. Now, Desync has been a huge issue in Throne for a while now. If you've played the game for an extensive amount of time, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. This has been the first time for me that a game has been unplayable without a VPN like exit lag. Not sponsored, by the way. Even right now, a lot of people in my guild on NA East are basically using some sort of VPN, and a lot of these
I mean, in Korea it was really bad, and then on global it was still bad. However, it has gotten much better with all the optimization changes in the latest updates. But I do remember when it's like large scale stuff happening, like Siege or anything, you're trying to use the hook or anything, there are still desync issues. And it's like, I feel like it just comes with like insane large scale stuff when a lot of effects are happening, and it's really unfortunate, but
players are literally in the same country the server
it does
is
suck.
located. In my case, if I do not use a VPN on either the Korean or North American servers, I will have massive delay in ability usage, disconnects, huge server lag at big events, and crazy flying morph desync.
I think I was live streaming two of my sieges, and I got disconnected twice.
How many people that don't know about this have been turned off by this game because the game
Like when I say twice, I mean like for like the rest of the siege.
feel extremely bad to play without a VPN for some players. Now, launch was extremely fun and sweaty for the player base, and of course, we're all having a blast. This is also expected because honestly, most MMO launches are usually somewhat fun. One piece of content that was very important to do were world events. Back before Dominion events existed, we had conflict events, which were basically controlled by alliances since there was no team color system and are a completely open world. This was a huge problem that I will talk about a little later. The reason why world events were extremely valuable, especially when it came to getting a high rank, was because they would supply you with basically the only realistic way to get Marins.
Yeah.
Marins for a long time were also worth a lot of in-game currency, so this gave monetary value for big alliances to control all conflict events. You may see a problem here. Killing other players back in the day was also...
I mean, this was a big problem back in the day. This is not an issue right now in the game, right? So even though it's talking about the death of Throne of Liberty, I feel like we should look at current events, even though you have to look at the past events where there was lag issues. But some of these things are all resolved in the game.
Advantage, as when you died back in the day, it costed a lot of salt to remove resurrection sickness, which was a big stat debuff.
Yeah, I remember this. That was horrible.
The ability for
But again, same thing. They fixed this. They removed the stat debuff on
on your
launch.
server was also worth having compared to today. So that meant you had a lot of people risking their soul to gain more kill ranking. Now, to be honest, the change they made later with removing the paying of soul to remove your resurrection debuff was actually a great change, as more people were motivated to PvP and people weren't so scared of dying. In general,
And I'm gonna be honest, many things like I complained about when it comes to Throne Liberty, they did implement many of the changes, but every time they implement changes, they add more stuff that is not so nice with the game. So when they introduce, for example, a new rune system, like a rune system management system, because it was horrible, they introduce something that is artifacts, which has a horrible system, right? So every time they fix things, they add another thing to the game that needs fixing again. That's the biggest problem when it comes to Throne Liberties. When they add something or change something good, they always add something bad. Either it's a bug, glitch, or a horrible system.
though, there was definitely a lot more at stake and created a more incentive when it came to attending every event and being a hardcore gamer in general. Now, alliances. This, in my opinion, has been one of the factors for the game's downfall.
Now, alliances were good at the start when there was a lot of players, a very active player base. Alliances were fun when it comes to sieges, but when the first big update came way before Talandre, they should have just removed the alliance or slowly, like when it comes to your population, you're seeing that the alliance is taking over, because this is what's one of my most important things that I talked about is every good player, every whale are going to be invited into these massive strong guilds. They're going to make strong alliances to control everything to get all the loot. That's an issue. It's going to be a problem for casual players or anybody else doing content. So what they have to do is you can start with their basic alliances, and then every couple of months they cut down on the alliance. Now you can only have 3 guilds in the alliance. Now you can only have 2 guilds in the alliance. And then right now just completely remove alliances, because the reason I was saying remove alliances, what people don't understand is people are like, yeah, but what about the large scale PvP? There will be more large scale PvP when you remove alliances. The reason for that is right now there's always one strong alliance versus a small alliance, right? Like let's say it's like 8 guilds fighting. Nobody else can compete when it comes to Nebula, when it comes to Siege, when it comes to any kind of content. But if you remove alliances, suddenly you're going to have a lot of these small guilds suddenly appearing and doing this fights because you have a chance to win. So now instead of having one big alliance versus a small alliance, you're going to have probably 12, 13, 15 guilds, solo guilds fighting for either a boss or the siege or whatever, and it will actually invite more large-scale PvP because more people can compete and more people have a chance to win instead of, because now they're fighting against one guild, 1v1 instead of 1v4, right?
If you're not familiar with Throne and Liberty, guilds can hold up to 70 players and alliances can hold up to a total of 4 guilds, reaching a total of 280 players on the same team. We have seen over time from the Korean servers and global servers that alliances have caused massive damage to the health of servers.
Yeah.
As someone that has been part of the strongest alliances on the server and has led a very strong alliance, I can vouch for how bad the system is.
I mean, I agree. I can see the same thing. I was part of one of the strongest alliances in EU, and even though it is again fun winning and it's fun getting the loot, at the end of the day, the bad part about it is if nobody challenges you because people give up when they see a strong alliance. There's no PvP content for you because everything is just easy. And there's no PvP to do because people just run away. So overall, I do think, even though it was nice getting extra loot and stuff and winning, it just kills the content. It just kills the PvP. And I think it should be removed.
Alliances used to be even worse, as the point mentioned before, most content was open world. This included boonstones, riftstones, conflict events, bosses, tax cut, and siege. Depending on the health of your server, alliances could literally control every piece of content.
Yeah,
a great
horrible.
change they made to the game was the introduction of the colored teams throughout multiple pieces of content like Siege, Tax Cut, and Dominion events. Now, I need to preface this, I understand Shadow Alliances can exist, but you have to take into account that friendly fire exists and the overall drama that comes with creating Shadow Alliances. The fact that
the Shadow Alliance thing was also a problem. That's the biggest thing, right? Even if they remove alliances, there is a chance, of course, that people will do Shadow Alliances. They will be like, yo, we're standing over here. But at least it fixes most of the problems on most of the servers. But it's always going to be those dirtbags that will try to team up even when they can't use the alliance system. And we also had that when it comes to sieges. We had like a big alliance inside the castle while there was going to be a small guild helping them on the outside. Stuff like that. It's just cringe.
Alliance system that is supported by the developers is an absolute joke. The only way I can see alliances even working is if you have a massive player base and, well, yeah.
That's exactly what I said. If it would have worked, alliances work at the start of the game, but the second you lose population, you gotta remove it.
As quoted here,
We've noticed something interesting, and that's the incredibly positive reception to our guild versus guild content. That's also coupled with concerns about how alliances and mega alliances are continuing to impact the overall PvP experience. As Throne and Liberty continues to evolve, we want to adapt content to lean into what players are organically enjoying, and I'm personally very excited and optimistic about this new direction.
you can see the developers and AGS want to move towards a smaller scale type of PvP, but they still want to keep the alliance system in, which in my opinion is counterintuitive. The only
Not only is it counterintuitive, but you can still have, because they talked about, like, I'm gonna be honest, AGS have been yapping left and right. If you look at, like, for example, Tico Talk, it's not Tico's fault, of course, but they say one thing, hey, we want to focus on GVG content, and then you look at the video from a week ago, and they're like, we want the large scale content. And I'm like, bro, you guys don't even know what you want, what PvP direction you want with the game, but just removing alliances will create fix both of those issues. It will create larger scale PvP for sieges, because more guilds can compete, and it will empower smaller guilds to make a more tight-knit community for, like, GVG stuff, for Boomstone, and
place where
Riftstones.
alliances make sense right now is Siege and Taxcar, which happen every 1 to 2 weeks. And I also
And not only that, like, sieges, who wins sieges? The defending, right? The defense have the higher chance to win defenses because everybody's just fighting on the outside, and then you can't get through. And you will see, if you look at the history of sieges, it's always like 80% of the time a defense won. Removing alliances would just create, of course, more competitiveness when it comes to sieges, and make sieges also more fun. You can also add a system that you can recruit one mercenary guild if they want to help you, so you have to do some politics to help you defend the siege. But again, just removing alliances and just adding like a mercenary system for sieges or tax events would also solve the problem.
also believe this content can definitely be reworked or reformatted to support guild versus guild. Now, throughout the first years of the Korean servers being live, there was a few hiccups here and there. As an example, on the 24th of January, a new big event bringing the introduction of the new resistance skills. This was TNL's worst event to ever exist, where you had to compete and place decently high in world events to even gain access to using some of the more powerful abilities in the game, like Greatsword's Guillotine Blade. NCSoft then later sent an apology and then ended up reworking the system so everyone had access to those abilities.
I mean, this is also like old news. We never had that in global.
Game, like the introduction of Dominion events, Riftstones and Boomstones being GVG based, skill specializations, hyper boost servers, great economy changes, and many more great updates. However, there were two things that Throne and Liberty could never get right, which is game balance and time gates.
Yeah.
Historically,
Not only time, like, problem with game balance and time gating is the dailies. Like, the dailies in this game are so, like, annoying to do, and you don't get any rewards almost by doing them. I dislike the dailies in this game so much, because when I actually end up doing the dungeons or end up doing the daily contracts or whatever, I sit up with what? I have 2 more T1 items in T2. Like, it's so bad. Like, I even like doing the dailies feel like a whole chore, but at the same time, of course, the Vinci system did make it a little bit better, but it's not rewarding enough.
time gates have always existed throughout MMOs in one way or another, like for example weekly raid lockouts in World of Warcraft. But when your whole game is based around time gates, lockouts and adding pay to win to bypass gear time gates, your game becomes awfully mobile game-like, which is not a good thing.
Yeah, but I mean, their plan was to have these mobile features, and unfortunately, we're never going to go away from this. All these MMOs are going to have pay-to-win systems. They just changed the pay-to-win system to make it more acceptable for dumb players, which is basically, instead of buying the gear itself straight up from the shop with money, you don't have to buy a currency, which you can now trade in the game. Because now, guys, it's not pay-to-win anymore, it's pay-to-progress, because now people can buy it and earn those pay-to-win currency themselves, but it still actually makes it more pay-to-win because you have to spend so much more. Like, each of these weapons costs thousands of dollars. The whales will keep spending and buying, and when you, as a casual player, feel like, oh my god, all these whales are getting all this good gear, I'm getting smashed, you feel the urge that you have to spend to catch up. You have to spend to be part of the guild. You have to spend to be able to do this dungeon. And it just becomes a really toxic community. And then they can hide behind the pay to progress label instead of the full pay-to-win label, but it's the same thing.
MMO had a lot of these lockouts and daily systems, and was arguably why Lost Ark ended up losing a lot of their player base.
Lost Ark was horrible.
Predatory mobile gaming practices have over time really seeped its way into PC.
Like the enchantment system in Lost Ark, by far the worst thing I ever experienced in any MMOs ever.
And console gaming. This has been decently present in Throne and Liberty, and it's a huge factor in why a lot of games die. If you really look into Throne and Liberty's game loop, the game as a whole is basically one massive time gate. Giving the freedom to players to do what they want when they want will reduce fatigue and overall burnout compared to forcing players to do every piece of content at a set scheduled time. I'm not saying scheduled content is bad, but there is a fine balance in it. A great example of this is RuneScape or Black Desert. In both of these MMOs, you truly have the freedom to do what you want when you want. Now, arguably one of
I mean, RuneScape has by far the best system, but it's really hard to implement if you're not a RuneScape type of game. While you can have some time-gated features, you should also have features where what's this nighttime gated. So like wall bosses and stuff for arc bosses, I understand they have to, you know, appear at certain times, and I understand, like for example, certain raids have to be time gated for weekly because you get really good rewards, but like certain dungeons or certain content to farm materials, let's say you want to farm Polish crystals or you want to farm unlock stones, there should be a way to just farm it as much as you want, while you can time gate some of the most strongest things, which is like the legendary gear.
Liberty's downfalls is how unbalanced the game has generally been over the years. From tanks being able to press counter barrier to wipe raids of players to tanks.
Yes, the balance has always been horrible. Like, since the start of the game, they can never get proper balancing. And I know it's hard to get balancing done correctly in MMOs, but you can do such a much better job. Like the Cordy spin being so broken for so long, the spear meta being incredibly OP. Like they should at least, instead of having B tier classes or S tier classes, the balance should be A and B tier. Like they should be close to each other, but obviously there will always be a meta that's a little bit stronger. But there should never be a meta that is so much stronger that people have to switch to it. And I know why they do this, because they want people and whales and players to pay to win, to swap to the stronger classes, because now this class is extremely OP. Now you have to swap to it, you have to spend money for it. It's the way to also milk money, right, if they have these OP classes, because people want to play them.
Only being way too impressive, to bow players being able to wipe enemy raids with one massive AoE, to spears and arch.
Yeah, I think I have a video on it where this is, I think at the start of T2, I think it was it Liberator that was really OP, or whichever, it was staff something, and it just like, of course the guild did stack kind of close together, but the player was able to just destroy 70 players alone in like 3 seconds. Like that shouldn't happen in any game. Even if people are standing still or whatever is happening, that should not happen.
Bosses being able to wipe raids with just a few press of a buttons. This has created some of the most unfun experiences for players in PvP. Fundamentally, the double weapon-based system has been a nightmare for the game. As an example, the Sword and Shield weapon in the game, mainly designed to be a tank weapon, has actually been a key piece to creating Throne's most oppressive damage classes in the game, like for example, Templar, Raider, or Steelheart. The amount of players that have quit Throne and Liberty based on how unbalanced and unfun a lot of the PvP metas have been is a lot. This does not even count.
And this also affects casual players more, because the whales will just adapt. They will just buy the best weapons, they will just buy the Cordies, they will just get the best class, while the casuals, I haven't spent a single dollar in the game and I can't afford to swap to a new class. I can't. I have to stick with my class because they made it so difficult for you to just swap and get the right gear and get the right items, that again, it's the casuals that get affected by it, and the whales will just swap, right? And then shout out to Poliniasha.
Matters that have existed since the release of Throne and Liberty Global. More on this later.
And the bugs experts have been insane. Like,
Right,
oh
so
my
it's the
god,
24th
I
of
agree.
July 2024, a massive combat overhaul to the game, including new skill specializations, increasing build
This was
variety, and
nice.
general changes to abilities. Economy changes were great, and the rework to open world dungeons was awesome. The skill specializations update was incredibly good for the game, and arguably one of the best updates that Throne and Liberty ever got. From the combat getting a huge improvement and the introduction of hyperboost servers, this update brought back a lot of returning and just new players.
This was
to the
before
game.
global launch
Hyperboost
too.
servers were
That was
fresh
good.
start servers basically with a fresh economy. and an enhanced speed to leveling and gear progression, something I wish the global servers had. People from around the
We are actually getting hyper boost. So this thing that he's talking about, the hyper boost stuff, we're actually getting. So this fixes the hyper boost stuff. So that's really good.
Throne and Liberty for the first time because they could finally catch up to the veteran players.
So for people that don't know, hyper boost is basically going to be a separate server where you can level up, and it's going to make a new hyper boost for fresh players too, so you can compete against fresh players and not like pay to win players. So they will be separate, but there's also going to be a catch up hyper boost server with probably more limitations for people that are returning back to the game.
This is one of the most fun experiences I've had in Throne and Liberty, and a lot of players share this sentiment. There was tons of players that everyone was PvPing since no one lacked the gear to fight. Like mentioned before, hyperboost servers were a great way for new players to catch up and to get more players to try your game. Unfortunately, the developers and AGS feel this.
Now, I want to address a question I've seen frequently in our community. How are new and returning players supposed to catch up if you didn't do a hyperboost server? Our approach is that catch-up mechanics should be core game features, not a separate server that isolates new and returning.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said earlier. They just go back on their word all the time. They don't know what they mean or saying. And again, community, we've seen it over and over again that the community is right. Community says hyperboost server, they say no, and then they realize, okay, we're losing players. Maybe we should have done hyperboost server. Maybe we should have listened. PP is unbalanced. They don't think so. And they're like, okay, maybe they're right. PP is unbalanced. Like every time we give them feedback and we tell them what to do, they don't believe us. And then months later, they're like, okay, maybe you guys have a point. The same thing with alliances. So we are getting a hyperboost server now.
General population.
Personally, I would love more players trying to get into the competitive scene for PvP, but one of the comments I get from my Twitch chat is, I wish I could get into PvP, but I find it hard to catch up. As someone that has multiple gear sets, good artifacts, high level mastery, I would love players that have the chance to be able to catch up to me faster. They had the system set up for this, but for some reason, they would rather kill their game than helping out new players.
Yeah, they realized a little too late.
PvP, a big topic I would like to talk about is going to be the pay-to-win aspect of this game.
Time is money, friend.
Now, if I'm going to be completely honest, I do believe mostly the pay-to-win throne is not that bad. I feel the main issue is probably going to be the Archboss weapons, costing up to $1,000 for...
Okay, let's break down the pay-to-win real quick, okay? Because I already talked about it, and he's saying it's not that bad. While I can a little bit agree compared to other like extremely bad games, like for example Lost Ark, the pay to win is bad, and I'm going to explain you guys why. Well, the Arc Boss weapons might cost a couple of $1,000 each, and then you have to trade a whole new gear set which costs $1,000 and whatever. Let's say a whale spends $2K or $3K or $4K dollars in the game, and then if you play something else, which is more pay to win, will spend $10K. Now the problem becomes, like I said, when there's class unbalances and certain classes are strong, you know what a whale can do? A whale can just buy the other Arc Boss weapons. And then they just introduce new Arc Boss weapons and new ways to upgrade your stuff and then heroic gear. A whale can just keep doing this. They can keep changing because they have a weapon system which makes it possible to swap weapons. But you have to buy, like let's say you swap the level of, let's say you have a Cordy. Okay, let's say you're a Crusader. You have the Great Sword, and you have the SNS. Now you find out that the Cordy SNS is really OP. So now you buy the crossbow. You swap the levels of your Great Sword to crossbow. And then, but you need to buy the gear. So you buy the crossbow, you buy the right set and gear that you need to do the Cordy spin. And now as a whale, you spend another $1,000 while the casuals can't do anything. And this is just going to keep happening. Everything, when the new orb comes, what do you think is going to happen when the orb comes, guys? Who's going to get the best orb, the best trades, all the juice? The whales. Who's going to get the right gear for it? The whales. Always first. And that's the biggest issue. It's always going to be that pay to win threshold every single time, and that's why it's really bad in Throne and Liberty, and people don't realize it because they're like, yeah, but it's only a couple weapons. No, the whales will keep adapting, they will keep buying the new thing while you will be stuck on the same class that you started with, because it's almost impossible if you're not playing every single day to make another build.
For sometimes an insane power spike. There's also the aspect of the pay to win kind of getting amplified because the game is time gated. So if you are a new player, my recommendation as a streamer is always to swipe. And I don't really like giving that advice, but it is what it is. I would definitely prefer pay to win not existing as a whole, especially since when you slap the pay to win tag on a game, people won't even try your game.
We're never getting away from the pay to win tag, by the way. What we can get though is a less pay to win MMO, like when it's only certain things like backspace or probably some kind of potion or like name changing ticket or skin, stuff like that is the type of pay to aspect that I would like to see, which we can see in MMO if they do it correctly. But unfortunately, we're just gonna get pay to win MMOs. It just depends on what level of pay to win it is, and hopefully it's gonna be the next MMO is gonna be lower tier, but Throne Liberty is definitely high there when it comes to pay to win.
Which will also affect the dwindling player base, but it is what it is once again. PvP players have two main factors of why they will PvP. One is going to be ego, and two is going to be incentive. Mainly prevalent
Mainly
in the
ego.
global launch of the game, over time, the developers have produced a reason to be competitive and removed a lot of incentive for PvP. As an example, rank 1 kills on a server is pretty much useless now, completely neglecting the wargame system. The system could have been great for the PvP player base, from casual to semi to hardcore, and honestly it didn't require too much development time because you literally had all the maps and all the systems there.
They could have put more effort into PvP, and like I said, they are turning into more PvE game. Now you have the heroics, you have the Nebula grind, you have all the PvE stuff coming. But they are introducing battleground, so maybe it will be a change to the PvP system. But PvP requires balancing for sure. And I don't think they need like insane amount of rewards, but some rewards for sure for the large scale PvP.
Developers also did not listen to the cries of their players.
And also, I don't completely agree here because PvP did give insane rewards, because if you control an arc boss, you got more arc boss during PvP, arc bosses and stuff, and you got more loot. Right now, we're in a phase where people don't need as much loot anymore. That's why PvP might not feel as rewarding, but again, they always rewarded PvP players. Same with Siege. You know, thousands of loot cents given away. So again, they did have the rewards. It's just that when you get far into an update, an expansion, the loot isn't required anymore. It might feel like it's not as rewarding anymore, but they could have done something with the war game system, added some kind of incentive to it, which I agree. But PvP is definitely rewarding in this game, or was.
Asking for a cubal PvP system like battlegrounds, which it could have been.
And we're getting that.
Games, but oh well. Another is the nighttime PvP chest nerf
in September.
Of PvP at nighttime dungeons, the PvE boss portals being way more worth than Dominion or Guild portals. Also, in general, the new portal system killing off large-scale PvP. There is also a Nebula Island time nerf that did not achieve anything besides making the game worse. There are plenty.
Now here, he's talking about battlegrounds and stuff. We are getting battlegrounds, which is, again, that's why I wanted to watch this video after the update, because they are making some changes. When it comes to Nebula, they did make some changes to Nebula now, where Nebula is a little bit more active because of the accessories that you can obtain. So definitely some good changes right there.
A lot of changes were made towards the casual player base while damaging the competitive PvP scene. And I'm not saying they should not cater towards the casual player base, but I do believe there should be fun content for all types of players. But releasing problematic patches for the competitive scene of your game while you advertise your game as a PvP MMO is mismanagement. Especially when the future roadmap for this game has basically nothing for PvP players. Even a
battlegrounds,
that knows how to grab the attention of
and we got inter-server Siege, which is kinda cool, I guess.
And has the funding to back it, advertise really only the PvP aspects of the game. As an example, during the pre-release live stream, they advertised 3v3 arenas and Siege. Throne of Liberty was never known for its PvE. Its target audience was always PvP players. There are plenty of other PvE focused games out there like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, and if your game is on the brink of death, neglecting the players you advertise your game for is a big question mark. Previously, I had mentioned bugged metas. The game's polish, especially ever since Throne of Liberty's Talandra expansion, has been absolutely horrific. I'm now going to tell you a few from the list of recent game-breaking bugs. Guilds glitching into the same team or Dominion fights. Sealed Sanctuary entrance glitch. Falling through the Dominion portal and an interaction bug. AoE Blessed Barrier having double the effect. Card daggers being bugged in multiple ways that it had to be banned from the Best in Guild tournament. Blood Devotion literally having 4 different bugs in itself. Horde Warrior, Power Grip, Raging Frenzy, and Vampiric Contract bugs. Multiple glitches for cheesing Dimensional Trials, and accidentally adding a powerful Arc Boss item to the Tier 3 dungeon and then removing it, then breaking the market, and you get the point. One of the final nails in the
The exploits in this game were really bad, and it's gonna be bad with the new changes coming too, with the housing system or the battlegrounds and dimensional trial changes. 100%. gonna be bugs and exploits. Hopefully they're better. Right now they did punish players for cheating in the raid, so maybe they're better now at like at least punishing players and then fixing it really fast. But that's really good. Hey, by the way, that's my name right there. Hey, yo, Spid, Caster, W.
Often for the PvP player base, and why a lot of people are quitting is what happened to the game during Blue Squadron's Best in Guild tournament. Now, Amazon personally funded a prize pool of 1.3 million Blue.
Big.
This was worth over 20,000 USD, so this tournament was somewhat serious. But after the first week of matches and halfway through the tournament, there was a massive balance patch. Now, the
W.
halfway through a tournament for a prize pool worth over 20,000 USD is one thing, but the issue was the amount of game-breaking bugs that were added during this patch. This ended up creating a new bugged meta. So when it took them 2 weeks to fix the game-breaking bugs, which was again halfway through the tournament, it changed the meta for a third time.
I mean, let's be honest on the tournament. The tournament was fun. Blue Squadron, you know, did the tournament. Big shout out. I was there casting too. But for them, the tournament was just like a placeholder for them to release content. While they were happy for it, they didn't really care much except sponsoring the money. Like they should have paid at least Blue, and they should have made it more like engaging, more accessible for sure. But for them, it was just like marketing thing, and they didn't have to do much except give the prize rewards. Like all the content creators did all the job for them. So I don't think they really cared about the balancing and all those things, to be honest. And there were some bugs with like the war game spectator thing too at the same time. So
Players had to invest a lot of real money to change their builds because of the meta changing over 3 times in a
again, like I said, they changed the meta during the tournament. Get that money. You gotta bet that 20,000 back. You know, the whales gotta change their builds now so they can win the tournament for their ego, whatever. So again,
few weeks.
I mean, it's so deliberate.
Now, we can all take this information and basically just put it down to this. MMO games should never be developed with mainly PvP in mind. I don't exactly disagree, and I don't agree with this. I believe there is a big player base for both aspects of MMO gameplay. I truly believe MMO should have content for all types of players. It makes a more immersive living and breathing world, especially if you add life skilling and crafting aspects to your game. Throne and Liberty decided to create content for mainly PvP players, and then decided to take a 180 and neglect the PvP aspects of the game. I don't know what exactly happened to the Throne and Liberty development team ever since TNO released globally, but with the constant bugged updates and the out-of-touch decision making, at this rate the game will slowly bleed out players, as we can evidently see with the Steam charts and the Korean servers being pretty much dead. I realistically feel the game needed fundamental reworks and a philosophy change. I still believe the game could be saved, but it just seems NCSoft stopped caring, as they have most likely just moved on to their next big game, Ion 2. I hope they learned from the huge mistakes they made in Throne of Liberty and apply that knowledge to Ion 2.
Ion 2 is cool.
Have an emphasis on both PvE
No,
and PvP.
nothing's gonna happen.
Thank you guys for watching, and peace out.
Aeon 2 is a little bit copium. Overall, I do think that there are some core fundamental problems with the game, but it seems like they are building more of a PvE type of game with some PvP features now, because they realize that maybe the rest of the players is what they want, because they did get boost in player numbers when they released the raid content, the heroic weapons. So maybe they're going to focus more towards the PvE stuff, and we are getting a big update addressing some of the issues that were talked about in this game. But again, it will create more bugs, it will create more issues, because that's the biggest problem with Throne Liberty. Every time they do something good, they also equally add something bad or negative to it. They introduce systems that aren't ready, aren't polished. Like, for example, now I'm just using the artifact system. It's not ready. There is heroic weapons, which requires insane amount of materials that the game can't provide, and it just cucks over like casual players and stuff. So it definitely has some issues, but I do see a positive direction that Throne Liberty are trying to go in, as long as they are able to make the big update in 2 months, a really good update without big issues, and then probably release like an expansion later on. I think could be positive and good for the game. But as of now, I do think the player numbers aren't gonna keep rapidly declining. After summer, I do see probably more players coming back to the game and probably maintaining the number that they have right now, but it all depends on how the update will go, in my opinion. Overall, a good video. Check out Invertible. I would love to hear you guys' opinion in the comments below. What do you guys think about Throne Liberty? Do you think it has a chance to keep continuing being a proper MMO, or do you see it dying? Let me know. Check out this video right here, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.